No. Hey,
Oh.
video people. Secret video stuff here.
Also, the secret video people might realize that we're wearing the same clothes and that we record 2 episodes.
No!
Two in a day.
They can't know that.
This is
You mean
November
my
6th,
cluelessness?
2017. We're
Right,
doing
right.
this.
My cluelessness about Datalore last episode wasn't
Right,
convincing
exactly.
enough. No, we pause the recording, we go watch the next episode, and then we come
Right.
back, obviously.
Sorry. I didn't reveal the process in the correct way.
Well, a secret is a secret. So there you go. You got it now.
Done.
Good stuff you get here on the tubes.
It was a good pairing, though. It's like I feel like we had a good like wine and cheese pairing with the Big Goodbye and Datalore.
Yeah, for sure.
Delectable.
These were classics in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say in the season with a bang, and then I realized we are at the midpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still got more season 1 to get through.
Are like all at least 20 episodes. For sure.
Right, which is why I said Star Trek original series only had 1 season. They had 3 seasons, but 1 current season's worth of episodes. Type of thing.
How many seasons or how many episodes are in their season?
I forget. It's
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I want to look it up.
This is the sort of exclusive content you only get from the YouTube video.
79 episodes.
79 episodes total. Okay, so
It's still pretty long.
quite a bit.
Well, your explanation was wrong.
It's all wrong. I don't know how I got that in my head.
You can still keep calling it 1 season. That can.
I will. There was only 1 season. Mark my words.
We'll just have you keep saying that and people correcting you and just ignoring this correction.
No.
We'll get Lord to come back and have him erase the archives so that you can be right.
I'm into it.
What if you also insisted that Brent Spiner's brother Doug Spiner played Lord the entire time?
Okay, let's just have you do that for this whole episode, and only YouTube people will know it's a bit.
Do not want that on my Twitter.
Okay, great. I'll do it.
All right, let's actually record. Well, if you do, let's actually record audio for this.
Okay. Wait, hold on. I can't hold a straight face. Jake, you're gonna have to pretend Doug Spiner's real.
We're not.
No.
Yeah. Just say you read it on Memory Alpha.
No.
And say that the YouTube people will know, especially.
We're gonna get
about this secret.
This is a joke that's funny now that when we try it in 20 minutes, we'll be like, what are we talking about?
Right.
Okay, playa.
All right. You know what? If you can pull it off, Becca, go for it. I'm going to record audio. You guys ready to record?
I guess.
Recording.
All right. Recording audio. Let's snap our fingers for synchronization on 3. 1, 2, 3.
If you snap both, that's two sounds.
Correct. I take the left hand every time.
I'm saying you should only snap with a single hand.
But
do it at the same time.
Snap and there's a first snap and an auxiliary snap.
Got it.
You always have a backup snap. Do you guys have that
You're
chat
welcome
up
for
as
that.
well?
That was second.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Becca Scott, Xander Jeanneret, thank you for coming into the casting office today. Good to see you both.
Oh, is this the couch? Like, do I just?
I can't do this today. I have too much self-respect, I decided.
Oh, so you drove all the way over here to be in the casting office, and your first line of dialogue is to leave?
I see the couch, and I know what happens here.
Oh, no, I don't want you. The couch is for an audition this afternoon. I want you to both stand. We're going to do a quick scene. I'm casting Star Trek The Next Generation, and I just need you guys to be Starfleet officers.
What?
Wait, you're calling it The Next Generation? Isn't that a little on the nose?
Just go with me instead of fighting me on everything that we've done so far. So I'm going to take a line from one of the episodes, specifically Datalore, and I want you guys to just be able to read the line. So it's one of Worf's lines, as a matter of fact. I'll read Tasha Yar's line, and I'll have you guys read Worf, okay? So, Becca, do you want to go first, or Xander?
I do.
Okay, great. I'm going to read Yar, you read Worf. Here we go. My turbo sensors say he went to deck 4. Worf?
Where he examined some micro-miniature work tools and some fine-grind quadratium. You told me this wouldn't be sexual.
That was pretty good. We just really want you to be able to say the techno babble with a lot of ease. So, Xander, let's have you give it a try, and really nice and concise and quick. My turbo sensors say he went to deck 4. Worf?
Where he examined some micro-miniature work tools and some fine-grind quadratium.
Ooh, Ooh, good gruffness. I like that. You guys both did good. So you guys get this, right?
You just got to kind of
We both get the
mumble
part?
it.
You don't both get the part. I can only give it to one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
Michael
make
Dorn.
I'm gonna make the line a little bit harder. Okay. So Becca, let's try it for you again. It's from this part here. My turbo sensors say he went to deck 4. Worf.
Where he examined some micro miniature super spatula work instruments and some fine grind shine quintranium at a minimum.
Okay, that was not accurate, but it was quick. Loved that choice. Xander, let's try you. My turbo sensors say he went to deck 4. Worf.
Where he examined some micro miniature super ultra work instrument tools and define grind shine time quadratanium at a minimum.
Okay, I think you fell asleep halfway through that. So that's not the best. I'm going to give you guys one more shot here. I'm going to make
Hold on, these are actually lines from your script. You actually are going to have the actor say this and put it on film?
Yes, I have the licensing rights for Star Trek The Next Generation. If the T is capitalized, kind of like the Pepsi Next.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit different. But yeah, I'm trying to make it just a little more fleshed out. But I really need some believable Starfleet officers. So let's try this line one more time. Becca, let's have you go first. My turbo sensors say he went to deck 4. Worf?
Where he examined some true blue reduced hue micro miniature super ultra work instrument by product tools and some fine grind shine time wrap around some decent twine. Grab your partner do-si-do quadranium superladium in an old row tie bow butt show.
That was it. Becca,
that was great.
I think I'm going to give you the role unless Xander can really pull it out here.
Okay, let me find it.
Fuck up, please fuck up.
My turbo sensors say he went to deck 4. Worf?
Where he examined some true blue reduced hue micro miniature super ultra work instrument byproduct tools and some fine grind shine time wrap around some decent twine. Grab your partner do-si-do quadratanium hyperladium at an old row tie bow butt show.
Perfect.
Oh,
absolutely
my
perfect.
Goodness.
Give him the part. I quit.
Well,
I'm
here's what
leaving.
we have to do. Since I want you both in this, we're just going to do a twins episode where you two are both the same person.
That makes sense.
Speaking of twins, it's Datalore.
Hey!
Datalore. His name is Data.
His name is Data.
I'm going to kill you.
Either. You say tomato, I say data. The Enterprise explores Data's home planet, Omicron Theta. They find his brother and the dark secret he carries. This one was fun. We get to see Brent Spiner being more than just Brent Spiner. It was nuts.
This is my favorite episode. It's so good.
It's a legit favorite to have. We get the introduction of Lore, which I think is a fascinating villain in like just the human version of Data. Is this what he's trying to be like? I think the whole concept is really interesting.
This is my favorite episode because so many of the concepts so far in theory have been scary, have been suspenseful, have been super spooky, and people could die. And I haven't once felt scared for the characters. I've known it's a monster of the week, and I've just not emotionally invested in not thinking that they're going to be just fine at the end.
Right, and there wouldn't be lasting consequences.
Yeah, and maybe I knew that in the back of my mind, but just the performance was so nuanced. I was on the edge of my seat like, no, you got to no, that's not Data. Data is in trouble. Someone help Data, because I love Data so much, and getting to love him and hate him at the same time in this episode, and just immediately like knowing Lore's up to no good even before he'd done anything. It felt right. It felt like we're getting there.
A lot of credit needs to be given to, I think, both the writers of Data and Brent Spiner himself for making what is essentially, a non-life form a sense of real love that we have and an affection for him too.
Yeah,
because he's always aspiring to be loving and more human in some way, and he never quite gets there, but he always is putting in the effort. And in this effort we see sneezing tests, which is
right.
really forced.
There are so many human things I wish I could do properly. Hold on. Achoo.
Yeah, I think that in that scene specifically, we can see Wesley or Will Wheaton break a little bit in that he's trying to deliver this dialogue, but he's laughing too hard at what Brent Spiner is doing in the mirror.
Yeah, Brent
I
Spiner's
mean, I
doing
can
an
only
acting
imagine.
exercise in the mirror. I mean, that's
This whole episode was an acting exercise, like an acting masterclass. You could just tell from the minute control that he has of his facial muscles to being able to like reenact a sneeze in that way multiple times. Like it's the examination of the human condition, and I think it's what a lot of actors aspire to.
Yeah, I mean, really, I should stop paying for acting classes and just watch this episode over and over because there's so much more to get from it. The facial tic, absolutely.
Right?
Let's set up what happens here. So we
Yeah.
go to Data's home, sweet home, which is Omicron Theta. We're told in exposition that he was found there by some explorers or something like that, and it was like a farmland planet at one point when they left. And
it was a colony.
It was a colony, and now they've found no one is there, and it's desolate. It's barren. All life has been wiped out. But he does have the memories of a bunch of the colonists that lived there. Apparently, that's a very like quickly mentioned thing that like, oh, by the way, you have all of the accumulated knowledge of a society of people. Moving on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely a plot hole at the top here. Did they rescue his body? Which it sounds like after this big catastrophic event happened to the people that lived there. I guess it was called the Tripoli landing party that found him.
Mm-hmm.
Or was there still colonists there? In which case they would have run away on whatever ship picked up Data in the first place. So it's curious that he's surprised for the first time that there's nobody living here.
Mm-hmm.
He should have known that.
Yeah. And I think that we'll bring up these parts later on in the story as well, because it is a core function of what Data brings to the table. Where does this core humanity come from? Their explanation for it is it's this amalgamation of these colonists that were at the end of their life because they had this crystalline entity coming at them, so they're trying to dump everything into this kind of like last hope time capsule type of thing in Data. And
a
then
real
it's found,
R2-D2.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think, yeah. It probably could have been influenced in the same way.
I always thought Data was standard issue Starfleet, but I don't think we had addressed previously where he came from before this episode.
Oh, I didn't know you thought that. Did you think that now?
I still think that.
I meant prior to this episode, you thought that. You thought he was like a standard thing that comes on starships?
Well, no, because there's never been another Data, but it wasn't clear to me that he wasn't manufactured on Earth.
Oh, interesting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they don't. I think they briefly mention it somewhere in the early episodes, but they don't go into it too much. So this is
the first. Yeah, this is the first sort of backstory that we get on where Data came from, even visiting his home planet, which is just his point of origin. He doesn't really have the cultural ties to anything on Omicron Theta.
So the away team goes down to where he was first found. Geordi rolls a 20 on his perception and finds the secret door.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Go into those underground laboratories, the laboratory of Sun Sung, who, so this seems like a throwaway line, Becca, but I know from my old watch throughs that his creator is actually will come into the show later on as well in some way.
Dr. Noonien Sung is a major player in the overall canon.
Oh, cool. They mentioned the name so many times, and it was also, we know that name from Earth history or human Federation history. That's one of the best scientists of all time.
Right.
So there will be a few notable, but I'm excited to see.
A few notable sort of, when they're building out this world of this future, they really do a good job of keeping track of the little names and things they're sprinkling in. Or if they're in a later episode and need something to call back to, they'll go back into these scripts to try to find something they can connect.
That's good script writing. That's good world building right there.
It is.
Well, most importantly, they find another Data.
Everybody starts awkwardly tiptoeing around it until they're called out later.
Well, when
I think that,
when they find
that scene is great.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Xander. You say it.
I don't want to talk about that. Well, so the call-out scene I definitely want to bring up later on because I think it's a great representation for something that could happen today. But first, let's talk about finding these body parts.
Oh, the body parts. Well,
you mean where Geordi finds a door and once again, as he has many times before, tells Riker there's a door and he should come over for a big reveal?
That's the one.
Yep.
Like I had such a weird reaction to Data's brother's head with those eyebrows, which I felt like he had feathers attached above his eyes. I don't know what those were exactly. They did such a good job with the face, but then there's these eyebrows that look like they came off of the set of like hair.
Real hair is expensive, okay? And this was for one scene.
And he's disassembled in all of these not linear parts, like his hands over here.
The real reason that Laura was disassembled was because of the eyebrows, not because of the emotions.
Also, they ask later if he's perfectly anatomically correct, just like Data. And I didn't see the parts that Lieutenant Yar experienced on that wall of parts. So it must have been a detachable penis somewhere, is all I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just for upgrading or whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm. For upgrades.
Swapping out.
Various attachments.
Yeah.
They do spend like a solid minute doing that montage scenes of the technicians like holding their wands over his body parts as they like reassemble him.
It was probably a very expensive scene, and they're like, we need to get as much footage out of this as we can.
Yeah, we really paid a lot for these prosthetic parts.
Yeah.
And Crusher is the first one to awkwardly say, we're going to need to look inside your if we could just scan your, And what occurred to me was, wouldn't all of the Starfleet officers have had some sort of scan? Wouldn't they already have a map of what's inside Data when they found this mysterious android?
I imagine
that someone's dissected him before.
I was wondering about this too, because everybody in the observation lounge was really awkward about it until Picard just kind of laid it out there. I was like, why is this happening? And I think it's because they are also trying to still make it somewhat of a family show. And I think they thought that kids would be like a little weirded out that there's like this disassembled cast member being put back together comparatively. So they were trying to make it feel safe, is my best guess.
Yeah, but it's also a really, really interesting start to the discussion of agency, especially when Crusher brings up the off switch and whether or not the crew would be like privy to the full schematics of Data like anyone would have their medical charts. The question comes up, is Data Dr. Crusher's responsibility or Chief Argyle's responsibility in engineering? Is he a machine, or is it something that Dr. Crusher needs to scan and keep up regularly? And I think that this is where we try to find where does he belong in that. One of the things I wanted to bring up was Picard's speech at the table, because one of the things that they bring up is the pronoun of using it as opposed to he, which I think is a great analogy for today's struggle with people sort of identifying with different pronouns than what people might attribute to them. And just the simple discussion of, hey, when you called Laura it makes me feel less than human, so could be referred to like a thing. And Picard simply says, my apologies, you're right, let's move on. And I think that is just the wish that everybody could have of like, hey, this isn't actually the name that I go by anymore, or I actually use these pronouns anymore. My apologies, let's move the fuck on.
Let's all take a note from Captain Picard's book. Yes.
Yeah, like, yes, this is an awkward situation. Yes, we have to confront some of our morality. But as long as we understand that, let's tackle this like any other problem. And we're not hurting Data's feelings. We're pussyfooting around for our own benefit. And we need to just examine why that is and get rid of it if it's a hindrance.
Way to examine ourselves. Love it.
Speaking of examining ourselves, there sure are a lot of kids who in a lot of media, there tend to be drawings that kids do of their own doom.
Right.
This episode was no exception. And I really loved the fact that when they brought a picture to Picard of one of these portraits, Josh M. signed his Doom portrait.
I didn't even notice that.
It says Josh M. in the corner.
M. Oh, I noticed that for sure. At first, they didn't say they were children's drawings. They just said, we found these drawings. And I was like, wait, hold on. This is the best depictions that the society could do, yet they made Data? There's a
This
disconnect
is Yoon
here.
Yen Soong's transcripts. And,
These are the
They put all the
blueprints.
money into the sciences and none into the arts in their schools.
It's just a concept. You get it.
I was fascinated. You know, Becca, you mentioned we didn't see Data's more intimate parts, but during the scene where they were assembling Lore, if you look carefully on the like glass panel where she has them side by side, I'm pretty sure I saw android nipples.
Oh, yeah. You see Data nipples all the time.
What? I didn't know
through
that.
the Starfleet uniform.
Everybody's nipples are visible
totally
through that
Xander,
uniform.
you have nipple vision from what
absolutely.
I got the Picard nipple vision. I've been getting a lot of nipple, especially after he got that kiss in the last episode.
Ooh.
There was some nipple action right before it cut to commercial break, but that's a different
It
episode.
was exciting. No, good.
Lore wakens up, or let me try that again.
That's good. No, that's good. We'll keep that.
Lore wakens up.
Yeah.
Lore awakens. He tells. What does he say? He's like, "Hi, I'm." He has a pretty great line.
I forget.
They're talking about him like he's not there. Classic. And then he wakes up and joins the conversation, immediately getting all attention and somehow finding a dope monk robe. Who had this laying around that he was like, that's my style. May I have? Give me, please.
Is that a civilian uniform, Xander?
Well, so what's interesting here, and this is a great place to bring this up, I think I've talked about it before in that we've seen the color change from command and security, gone from like red shirts to the command red, and now Data is in this gold. And that was specifically because it would match the makeup and the context that they had for him. It reflected and worked better. So it's so interesting that they took the exact same shade that they knew worked with the makeup, and they made another costume out of it that was a civilian version. Is no way a Starfleet uniform, but they reflected the same colors because they knew that it worked.
It kind of looks like the uniform that the chief engineer was wearing in the second episode when they had all those chips disassembled. Chief Shinova or something like that, right?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, this is with anything. If you put a primary color with like a black turtleneck or some black piping, it looks like Star Trek.
This is a good point.
Yeah, just like in those Animal Crossing uniforms that
everybody found. Exactly.
All right, so then Laura's like taking up Data's spot on the bridge just to check it out, and they're like, oh yeah, push this button, it's fine, it makes the ship go. That's how you would take it over if you wanted to send us towards some crystalline structure that wants to absorb all humanity.
Yeah.
That's my spot. Who let you on the bridge?
He does have quite a bit of shade that he gets to throw with just the simple lines of like, you don't get to sit there without X many years in the academy and training and whatever. So it's a really subtle way that he can kind of play off himself, because I don't know exactly how they filmed this, but I can assume that they had to shoot, him in the seat and him outside acting against himself. Yeah.
You lock the camera in place and shoot it twice, and if someone budges that camera,
oof.
Trouble.
Yeah.
Lore does accurately, I think, assess that all that training, that those years of service, that's for humans to like learn how to do that stuff. They're androids. They can pick that up super quick. I thought that was an interesting point because he's right?
Yeah. And I think that this highlights a lot of what Data sort of established in the wish granting scene with Riker. If he got everything that he wanted, if he became human, then there wouldn't be a point. He's trying to go through the journey and have the experience. And part of that is going through Starfleet Academy, earning the right to be on the bridge. That's part of going through the process. And by just downloading the data, you're not going through the journey.
It's the journey, not the destination, baby.
It is.
Okay, I have a lot of points on this that I want to bring up that are, so the overall theme seems to be playing with the idea of the Uncanny Valley, because we learned that Lore was decommissioned because he was too human-like in his personality traits and his desires.
That's what he says.
Yeah, well, and he's also evil, coincidentally.
Right.
But when this is the scene, I was like, wait, hold on. They've like been, I thought they were sort of collaborating. They seem to have this shorthand a little bit. And then it reminded me of something that I had read in a book about how when two robots like AI communicate, they develop a shorthand very quickly. And this is in the book, Give People Money by Annie Lowry. That's on UBI, but I got to tell you guys about some part of it. So there were these Facebook chat bots, and they were able to do like negotiations. Humans couldn't tell whether they were negotiating with a real person or not. And then when they would have the chatbots talk to one another, they very quickly developed their own language. So it would be, for example, Bob, I everything else. Alice, balls have 0 to me. Bob, UI everything else. And it was saying that the bots determined that it was more efficient and effective to speak in their own shorthand, learning and teaching themselves to do these simple negotiations. And then shortly after, Facebook shut them down. But it'll say the 5 times to interpret that I want 5 copies of this item, for example. So I thought that was so interesting. And I was like, if we were to do this episode today, we might have them sort of speak in a shorthand, because you kind of wonder, like, why aren't they telepathic, or why aren't they just like downloading this information by touching fingertips? They're not that, like, it's more interesting to watch the actors actually have a conversation.
Sure.
Of like performance and us understanding
but they could just
where they're coming
at
from.
each other and have all that info be transmitted.
Yeah,
right.
Or maybe, step into some sort of like Matrix-like holodeck communication channel where they wouldn't actually have to be having this in physical conversation if they can communicate through just downloading data.
I think what you're describing too, Becca, is one of the outcomes, but the other one could have been a recursive loop of just they would talk to each other until they started repeating each other back and forth, which is another like outcome of that sort of experiment. But I think that you hit that right on the head of this is just another detail that Brent Spiner goes into in his performance, in that they both feel like 2 distinct different characters, and the way that they interact with each other wasn't happening in real time, and yet it feels so natural, and you could play off each other. It was so good.
Excellent point, because I wasn't even thinking about the level of nuance it takes to give that performance twice from different points of view, and to really, because acting is all about listening,
reacting
to the performance you're getting, and he was doing that so well, having just remembered or maybe watched playback of what he'd done before.
Or there might have been someone who read.
Yeah, the scene where Lore like handed Data the champagne, I was kind of blown away by. Now I remember we are watching the remastered version, so I don't know how much I picked that up, but that was really smooth, and there wasn't like camera movement at all. Like, would they have to lock it off and stuff? But that was flawless as far as I was concerned. And
the other really impressive bit of cinematography that I saw was the mirror shot or something like that, where the I think it was a stunt double as Data was out of focus, and then there was a close up on Brent Spiner's Lore, so you had both bodies in the same shot, but one was out of focus and in the background, and it was a great way to do that.
Classic. Out of focus stunt double.
Not only that though, but like the layers that Brent Spiner has to play, because there's a point where he's playing Lore, playing Data,
right? This is the same sort of respect that I have for Emma Watson, right? Hermione Granger.
Mm-hmm.
She played Bellatrix Lestrange playing Hermione Granger at the bank poorly, and I thought it was a great performance. Or no, it was the other way around. It was Helena Bonham Carter playing Hermione. Yeah.
Oh man, we got to watch that again. Okay, to go back to why this episode was actually scary and felt like it had more stakes. Not only do we have the Data versus Data situation, but then the crystalline entity you were mentioning before. Oh, I guess it is an insatiable life force eater is how they describe it. And when Brett Spiner mentions and that's why I fed the entire colony to the crystalline structure, because then it would owe me one, was absolutely terrifying. This extreme need of hunger, hunger for power that it had. Was so terrifying. Whew.
Right.
I like that you call Lore Brent Spiner.
Yeah, obviously that's him playing himself. Data is pure.
Right. Brent versus Brett.
The facial tics were a really the distinction between them. I thought it was clever of Lore to then just give him a facial tic. That was a really convenient little tool.
The same thing with the contractions, because that's one of the things they used with Mr. Spock, too, in that he would not use contractions in his speech, and that's how they would get a more formal read. But there were a few flub-ups.
Would not.
Would not. But one of the things that I wanted to quickly bring up as a sort of side thing, I'm in a Star Trek RPG, and right now in Clear Skies, we have just found another crystalline entity. So we are dealing with a hatching one and trying to find some other life force for it to consume. So spoilers.
Wait, so
Maybe.
your lore?
No.
Evil.
This is a new one. This is a different one in the future.
Don't feed it. No, don't feed it. Kill it.
Oh, okay. Now, do we kill it? That's killing a sentient life form.
Destroy it.
Well, I look forward to your opinions in the conference room.
This isn't the last we'll hear of the crystalline entity, as I recall.
Absolutely.
Right?
So the evil twin game starts to play out. Lore takes the place of Data after roofing him.
Yep.
Through his one Achilles heel, following human customs.
Yeah, that was a pretty good way to do it, because I was like, what are we doing here with alcohol? What's the plan? And then it was a good point that it's like, hey, if you want to be more human, we do a toast.
Right.
And then Data's like, I don't really see the point, and then just passes out.
Yeah, it was great.
Now, what would have poisoned Data?
Some sort of nanotechnology, maybe, or something that would mess with his positronic matrix, as they would say.
Ooh, good babbled.
It's just a magnet he swallowed. That's all.
Yeah, he just a big old horseshoe magnet that was pulverized.
There was a moment where Riker really became Dad Riker, and I think it was when he was telling Wesley not to not get involved with what was going on. Wesley was always airing suspicions, as he does in many episodes, because he witnesses these things. And everybody gets on his case, in fact, to the point to where we get one of the best lines in Star Trek, which is just, "Shut up, Wesley."
Okay, if Will never this episode, he will burn you.
Yeah.
I know, but should I bleep it? What's the deal?
Like, I
get that it became a thing.
Right. No, but
I feel bad hearing it, knowing how much he hates it. I'm like, cover my ears.
Well, let's talk about it then. Like, it was a really demeaning thing for that character to go through, and I guess they were trying to show that he wasn't respected, but man, he was respected so many times before this, and then suddenly they reverse course.
I don't get it. It was so stupid of them to not listen to him after he's proven time and time again that he is brilliant. He sees things that other people don't. A traveler from another dimension deigned to show himself to these Federation officers just so he could tell the captain, you have a prodigy, a super brilliant genius on your hands. Listen to him and foster that.
Lore even mentions that to Data. He's like, he's a mere boy, and Data says, oh, he's much more than that. Like, we make that clear.
Well, I think this is one of the big pitfalls that they fell into in trying to develop a Monster of the Week format, in that the consequences of every episode can't be too grand, in that every episode could air out of order, in that they shot them out of order, and who knows when they would be airing. So they kind of have to reestablish Wesley as this boy genius all the time, because who knows when in the timeline this is actually going to be coming out.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Everybody else, Dr. Crusher is the doctor. The captain is the captain. You can kind of figure it out. But why is this kid on the Starship bridge? You know, you kind of have to explain it each time. They go away from that, thankfully. And I think this was not only a show of maybe 1980s like parenting techniques of like the stern father tells the kids what they need to hear, and the mother is there to comfort them, but only to a certain level. And so they both get fed up and say, shut up, Wesley. And it's like, parents can relate, right? But it came across very demeaning and the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, there was so much finger pointing and like talking down to. It just felt really out of place and really out of nowhere for
it felt like they just had to make that happen just to have the suspense. But really, Picard didn't get to do much except be wrong in this episode.
That's true. Yeah.
So Wesley gets to go down with Riker to Data's quarters when they don't want to let Data alone by himself because he's a little suspicious of them. And then as soon as quote unquote Data gets there, he gets into the quarters, he plays puppet with his own body.
Which was really clever. I mean, a lot of times it's like, this is a good place for a clever plan to come in. And then it's like a little bit Deus Ex Machina. But that was actually like, oh, wow. yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense in the situation, and is terrifying that he got away with that. Because why? Of course, you would believe it. That it's scary, the thing that it's doing of seizuring, basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Another reason.
We all had a switch to be able to do that, but we don't.
And you don't tell people about your off switch, which is
Yeah.
why Beverly Crusher gets suspicious and goes along with her son completely being subordinate to the captain, having said...
Insubordinate.
Yes, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah.
What's the thing where you're not subordinate?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's guilty of some insubordination, one could say. Because she just is like, no, you got to leave the deck, Wesley. Okay, I guess I'll sneak with you and turn back on what the captain thinks is lore.
Right. Well, here's the thing, too, is from a writer's perspective, if you want to have a Wesley, Dr. Crusher Data episode, you need these excuses to kind of get them together without the rest of the characters. And so a way to do that is to put up what no one's listening to Wesley except for his mom. But they just did it, again, the wrong way.
Yeah.
For how good this episode was in general and how well Brent Spiner and the other actors, to be fair, really brought the script to life, because the resolution wasn't there. The stakes of the crystalline entity weren't really explained, and the threat of lore was there, but not really. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the script on its own may have been a little bit weak. It's the performance of the actors that really brought it to life.
Agreed. Well, and they realize giving Brett Spiner any chance to shine will make an awesome episode.
Especially in the shadow of his brother, Brent Spiner. It's just nice to see Brett.
About. We've cut that out. We've already cut that out.
No, you keep saying Brett Spiner.
I
made up a new character.
I mean, honestly,
right.
if you
and
say
I like
Brett
it,
Spiner,
and I'm going to stick with
about.
it.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Are you guys sure that I'm not right? Is this a Berenstain Bears situation?
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela died. And it's Brett Spiner.
We can call it the Brett Spiner effect if you want.
There it is.
Data versus lore versus Data versus Wesley occurs in the cargo bay, and we end the episode with transporting lore into space. And I think that's kind of just where they leave him, oddly. Like, they don't really resolve that,
His life force was probably absorbed by a crystalline structure, and we just never talk about it.
That's one hell of an assumption.
Yeah, there are a lot of conclusions.
They were going to stick a tree out there, a poor tree.
But that means they murdered him.
Well,
yes, and yeah. I mean, the android could survive in space.
It just seems unlike Starfleet to just beam an antagonist out and then just let him float there, even if he could survive.
Well, they had already told engineering or weapons, we're going to send out a non-human object that's going to be floating near the crystalline structure, and just blow it up as soon as you see it. So there you go.
Okay.
This is also where the plan, the plot loophole kind of comes in, because the plan for lore was that as soon as they're going to beam something out, they have to drop their shields. So once the shields are dropped and they beam the thing out, now you can fire crystalline entity. But instead, they've beamed something out. The crystalline entity doesn't fire while the shields are down. The thing they beamed out was lore, and they somehow cannot communicate with the crystalline entity anymore because lore is not on the ship. And that doesn't really make sense.
Whatever, run away!
Yeah.
But we're at 50 minutes, so we got to end the episode.
Right.
Okay, I just have to comment on something. Okay, Picard, super clever, super smart, having an off day because Data didn't recognize make it so. We all know make it so. We all can make it so. Also, when he was leaving the transportation deck, he was so chipper. The final lines are, "Hey, Riker, is Data more or less human than we want? I only wish we were all as well balanced, sir." Agreed. And then cheerfully walks out instead of we almost lost this very key crew member. Wow, what an intense day.
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's ending like the sitcoms of the time. They wanted this nice bow to put on the end of it. Everyone learned their lesson. The end. But it's no, not really for this one, huh?
They're still riding the line of the Family Show, as we discussed earlier, with the uncomfortableness that he experienced with his body being reassembled. Lore was actually originally planned to be a female android to provide a love interest for Data. But it was Brent Spiner that suggested the evil twin idea, and that was used instead.
Great
He
job,
was
Brent
like, guys, I'm
Spiner.
sorry. Do you know how good an actor I am?
He was also going to play the
Double
female version of himself, Becca. Don't you worry.
Oh, good, good, good.
Oh, wait, I need that.
I know, I made that up.
I know, but I want that now.
I'm sure he did it at one point in his own private videos.
Oh, I'm positive.
Well, that was Datalore, I should say.
Yeah.
Or should I say Datalore? Is that what you want me to say?
No.
I liked this one. I'll give this 3 nipples out of 4. Like, it was pretty solid.
Where did you get the extra nipple? We're running out.
Well, 3 out of 4 over 2 androids.
Oh.
Ooh. Yeah, I'll second your 3 out of 4 nipples, only because Picard could have used a nipple in all this.
Yeah. And like, I think it's a 4 out of 4 on the nipple scale, at least for me. I think it was pretty solid.
I mean, we could have just had him going back to play Dixon Hill the whole time, and that's why he wasn't paying any attention. Would have made more sense.
He might have been.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Shut up, Wesley. I've got to go beat Dixon Hill.
Well, next week we are going to the episode Angel 1. While Riker leads an away team to a female-dominated planet, a mysterious virus spreads amongst the Enterprise crew.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. So much so that let's head to our next coordinates.
Make it so.
Oh.
Whatever, I'm over it.
Wait, are you really Becca? Or are you Baka, your evil twin?
Are you Doug Scott?
See, you can't tell the difference.
Bye. All right.